All right. Welcome to episode 55 of the Jake Blanchard podcast. Adding another shout out to the intro here, a company called Stream to See. You may have heard them on the podcast on episode 50 with Mike Malter. Tons of great feedback from that podcast. I've done some additional research in the company and we forged a partnership. They are a personal care products company. They're known for sunscreen, and they're out there changing the industry. They're safe on reefs, fish. There's no compounds that mimic estrogen in them, harsh metals, or plastics. A lot of sunscreen companies claim that kind of stuff, but the research is overwhelming for Stream to See. Just check out the label. So go to streamtosee.com, and when you fill your cart, use the code JBP at checkout. Gets you 10% off your order. And another quick shout out here to Fellowship Brand Premium Men's Grooming Products. They're all natural, great scents, awesome for the health of the hair on your face. Committed to the highest quality ingredients, again, in their oils, balms, and butters. And their new tattoo balm is killer. I use it daily. Check them out, fellowshipbrand.com. And again, that's JBP at checkout. That'll get you 10% off your order. My guest today is Paul Salter. He is a registered dietitian. He's a coach. He's an author, and he's passionate about sustainable weight loss, not just weight loss, sustainable weight loss. He firmly believes that weight loss related challenges aren't always about a lack of nutritional knowledges, but actually like projections from deep-rooted emotional, psychological challenges and issues that keep people from sustaining what they have improved. He's passionate about helping men and women bring awareness to negative self-talk, toxic patterns, limiting beliefs, counterproductive habits, self-sabotage, all things that you're familiar with if you've tried to lose weight. But he helps people achieve their goals, understand the origins of some of that trauma, if you will, and then also helps them rewrite, reframe, and rewire for lasting positive change. And in the last 8 years, he's worked with over 1,450 men and women, and collectively they have lost more than 10,000 pounds, thousands of inches, and they're maintaining their results. So I'm excited to have Paul today. We're going to have a deep conversation about nutrition and wellness and health, and it's timely coming out of COVID lockdown. Paul, welcome to the podcast, my man.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
For sure, brother. All right. So let's do this. What is a registered dietitian? Like, what kind of schooling do you go through? Like, let's kind of find out about Paul a little bit, but like specifically, how'd you get into this space?
So picture this, 16-year-old, super competitive guy playing all kinds of sports. He's 5'2", 110 pounds.
Okay.
All his peers, 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot, 180, 200, 220. So this little guy is trying to find every little competitive advantage he can find to keep up with the bigger boys. And that little guy, of course, was me. And for whatever reason, I was able to connect the dots that, hey, if I started making better food choices and I was ditching the oatmeal cream pies and, choosing Subway over McDonald's at the age of, 16, 17, I was the one who was winning the sprint races during 2-a-day football practices. I was the one who was kicking everyone's butt on the lacrosse field because what I put in my body allowed me to perform at my best on the field. So fortunately, I speak here confidently today, just a nose under 6 foot. So I finally hit that growth spurt.
There you go.
But I took that passion with me and really started to explore how nutrition helped athletes. Like particularly for me, when I grew up and I did finally have some muscle mass, I wanted to grow that. I wanted to improve in every area I could related to physical performance. And because I was so involved in weightlifting, again, one of those competitive edges I was seeking out during my younger and smaller years, all of my friends started to gravitate towards me. Hey, like, how do you grow this muscle? What exercises work for this? And that encouraged me to pursue a personal training certification. But what happened was in that certification handbook, there was one single chapter dedicated to sports nutrition. And for me, that was my light bulb moment, my aha moment, like, holy crap, there's actually a way I can do this and help people improve their performance. I literally walked into my university the next day, declared the major of dietetics, and pursued that path.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So you were kind of on you were aware because you might have been on the losing side of the size and the height. And like, I love that. I love that story. It's the catalyzing experience, that perception that like, I'm an outlier in some way, or at least I feel like one in some way. Like, how am I going to seek out competitive advantages? And then that just kind of becomes the path you start to carve, excuse me. And then it starts to mature into the science, the evidence, the literature, the body of knowledge around that. So then you declare a major, you go and you study, and then, what did dietitians or Dietetics or sorry, I can't remember what you just said. I'm the worst at pronunciation, which is interesting for a guy with a podcast. But so the field that you choose, like what kind of things do people do when they graduate?
So the first thing everyone needs to recognize is dietetics. You can get to become a dietitian. You can have a degree in anything technically, but there's, a chunk of classes you have to take. So even if someone listening right now, let's say they majored in like finance and marketing, but they wanted to go back to school for dietetics, you can still do that. You just have to become very friendly with every type of chemistry and biology you can imagine and meet all of these prerequisites. And what happens after you graduate with any degree or you pursue this path, you're still not a dietitian. You have to then, similar to the medical field to become a doctor, you have to match to a residency program, the official dietetic internship. And to be very candid, this is a very convoluted and messed up system. It has about a 50% match rate. It's basically saying, hey, I want to go to school A, B, and C, and the schools get, an influx of hundreds of thousands of candidates. They rank them, and then some third-party system will match everybody together. So it's a very competitive route to become a dietitian. And if you do get matched, you're very fortunate, but the work is just beginning. You then have to undergo 1,200 hours of supervised practice in a specific program, rotating through community nutrition, medical nutrition, etc. And the biggest challenge for many people is that 75% of the programs out there have what's called a medical nutrition therapy concentration. So think dietitian in a hospital, and you're taught and bred to be just a dietetic or dietitian in a hospital. I stepped foot in the hospital day one during my program and knew right away that was not where I belonged.
Yeah, for sure. And I worked in hospitals and healthcare for a better part of my career. I can understand why people feel that way. It's not exactly how I feel, but I completely get it. It's a rough setting sometimes. It's very sterile, very, there's a lot of administrative burden that comes with running a hospital as well. So the freedom of practice, whatever discipline you're in, is based on how much freedom they give you.
Exactly. So you're, like I said, you're basically conditioned or at least groomed to be some type of medically related dietitian. Now you can be inpatient, outpatient in a variety of different niches, of course, but recognizing I didn't want to be in a hospital for the rest of my life, recognizing I had this cool background of experiences that I was compiling as I was completing my degree and my internship, working with athletes from, the elite youth to the Olympic level, I knew that was my calling outside of that. And around the time I was finishing my program, and then eventually you sit for a board certified exam, some of these non-medical field related dietitian positions were starting to open up in the sports world. I remember when I passed my exam, I think there was only, believe it or not, and this is like 2014, there's only 7 sports dietitians in the entire NFL. You think about that, professional athletes, teams, only 7 dietitians employed with the team. Fast forward to today, now there's, hundreds across the collegiate and professional level, but that's how far we've come in such a short period of time. And that's when I was really getting my foot in the door.
Absolutely. So you come out of college, you did your rotations, things like that. How did you pivot to saying, hey, I want to work with individuals, like people who are struggling? And then what was the catalyst for starting to focus on some of the mental, social, like those elements of weight loss in particular?
Yeah, so that small or late growth spurt, we'll call it, really forced me to learn how to be resourceful. So upon recognizing I didn't want to live in the hospital for the rest of my career, I was very keen on making it a priority to reach out to people in the sports nutrition world, reach out to local sports organizations, teams, et cetera, which afforded me the opportunity to land a couple really cool internships working at, UNC Chapel Hill with their dietitians and football team, working at what's called St. Vincent Sports Performance Center in Indianapolis, prepping NFL or future NFL athletes for the NFL Combine. So through just, hey, I'm Paul, here's my resume, I want to work, I'll volunteer, like give me an opportunity, I was able to forge the right connections. And that gave me the opportunity to work one-on-one, which exposed me to something I had never experienced, was the ability to go very deep with the single person to really understand not only their goals, but they have the knowledge. Why are they not able to accomplish this goal? And this really triggered my realization that, hey, there's a lot more than just nutrition knowledge or lack thereof holding people back from, even if it's improving performance now, where I'm helping people just simply lose weight and feel their best. And that really just spawned more research by myself, and just an obsession, if you will, with the information and the research to support people making changes in the mind and in the heart and in their behaviors.
100%, man. And hey, I'll take a second and reflect on my own personal weight loss journey. I first couple of years of college had I didn't have a ton of free time, but I had enough time to work the gym in day to day. So I wasn't eating the best foods, but I was working out enough, and I was young. So I got in decent shape. I wasn't ripped, but I was, functionally in decent shape. Started working for a handful of years, and then like slowly my weight ranges kept going up and up and up. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm between 190 and 200. Then it was 200, 210, then it was 210 to 220. By the time it was 2013, I had a job. I was working for a health system in Los Angeles. It required me to fly from Idaho almost every week to go down there. And between my wife being pregnant, and between being on per diem and just kind of eating and flying and being stressed, and I enjoyed the job. It's stressful, but I put on some weight, and then I just kind of got into this like point of no return. Depression sets in. Like at that time in my life, I stopped talking with my parents, which I persisted for a couple of years, which I don't talk about a whole lot, but it was a lot of internal stresses that were going on inside of me. And I just maintained an unhealthy weight. I lost the weight, but didn't do the internal work. I didn't gain it back, but I struggled in so many other areas of my life. It manifested in negative behaviors, all kinds of, just mood alterations and these types of things. And if you're not able to sit with yourself, that's kind of how I have been framing it, sit next to yourself, kind of understand what's going on, and head on address stuff in order to sustain, it's just not going to happen. It's going to manifest in some way, shape, or form if you have trauma or hurt. So like, how did you start building frameworks around this stuff? How do you unpack those questions for individuals like me that are on those journeys, but don't know that they have barriers that they have to overcome that maybe they haven't touched base with?
A fantastic question. So one of the most commonly shared goals I get, I can learn a lot about somebody and where they are related to their internal journey by the goals they share with me. And the most common one I get is, I want to weigh X number of pounds. I'm like, okay, that's all, fine and dandy. But what I really challenge them on is, are you seeking a number on that scale, or are you seeking a feeling? And when they think about that, they're like, oh, I don't really care about the number. I want to feel confident, in control, a sense of inner peace. I want to look sexy wearing X, Y, and Z. I want my husband or my wife to do a double take when I walk out of the shower. And it's like, okay, this is groundbreaking, because now all of a sudden we recognize we're shifting course here. We're looking to achieve a feeling. And once we're clear on the feelings that we're actually chasing, well, now we can begin to reverse engineer. This is where you want to be. And now we know where you are. What's taking place in between? That's the single biggest barrier to getting there. And more often than not, we find it's the voice in their head that's, starting with spawning negative self-talk. And as I know you know so well, that negative self-talk turns into the toxic thoughts, turns into the negative actions, and therefore they never get the outcomes or results they desire.
Yeah. So like, is this just an aggregation of all the experiences people have in their lives that they're just talking shit to themselves all the time, or they just like lose belief in themselves, or is it just seasons of life? Maybe it's a mixture of all that, but like, how do you get someone to understand that they've got to fix that? And what's the first steps in kind of rewiring your brain to prepare yourself for weight loss?
Fantastic question. So it starts with, like anything, awareness. So it's my job early on to help them bring awareness to whether it's the self-talk or a limiting belief is negatively impacting their life. So once we bring awareness, now we've created an opportunity to spawn positive change. So with that awareness, we want to not just skip over it and try to dive to the end and have a quick solution. Instead, we want to recognize both the origin of said thought, said belief system, said sabotaging behavior, because 99% of the time, there's a reason that thought or that talk or behavior was developed and put in place. And for most of us, about 90% of our belief system is formed between the ages of 0 to 6 and 7. And that belief system served us. It was a purpose. It helped us, have the love and affection and attention we needed from our caregivers or our parents. So if we can find the origin and then recognize, hey, said behavior served us at one time, but it's not serving, adult present day us, we're much more able to let go and actually forgive ourselves and then replace it with something that actually serves us and moves us in the right direction.
So then how much of your coaching is spent doing this kind of work between the ears versus, you know, what you're actually putting in your body, like weighing out macros and calories and putting on a plan, like lifting versus cardio? Like, how do you balance? That's a complex web to start weaving, man.
It totally is. And everyone, comes to me and they're like, you're a dietitian, but you're also like a life coach and a therapist. I'm like, yeah, I try to be a little sneaky. I got to give everybody what they think they want and need up front. But then when I get them in, I give them what they need. So I would honestly say maybe 10 to 20% of the time we're talking about nutrition, because here's the thing. From an early age, we're taught how to eat healthy. We at least have a pretty good understanding of healthy, not so healthy, what an appropriate portion size looks like versus what eating like an asshole looks like. So it's never really nutrition that's the issue. And if you think about it too, it's like losing weight and maintaining weight, it's all a game of numbers. It's simple. At the most simplest level, it's eat fewer calories than you expend, create a calorie deficit, lose weight. But what we really need to do is work on ascending into the identity of someone who can actually lose weight and keep it off. So 10 to 20% of nutrition, and the rest we're diving in between the ears and into the heart.
Dude, and it's confusing enough as an individual that's going out and trying to put yourself on diets are, I know my wife hates when I use the word diet, because sometimes I'm like, man, I need to go on a diet. And she's like, no, you don't need to go on a diet. She's like, you just need to watch what you're eating for a little bit and get back to, a more sustainable path. Stop calling it a diet. Because for a long time I was doing things like keto or paleo or elimination diets, or I never really went vegan, but I eliminated meat out of my diet here and there for a little while just to try certain things. What's your advice from that standpoint? There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of information about different ways to lose weight. I think you hit on the king of it. Take in more or less calories than you expend, probably lose weight. But like, what's your philosophy around that? And then people who are, maybe on a diet right now or considering doing a diet like keto, what's your advice for them? Do it, don't do it? Like, help me understand.
Absolutely. So you bring up a great point. There's a million and one different fad diets out there. Some that have stood a pretty long test of time, like keto. It's been around for a while enough now, paleo, etc. But here's the thing: if you've just started a diet or you're considering just this complete overhaul of your dietary behaviors, you need to ask yourself, can I see myself eating this way, not just for 30 days, 90 days, but 90 years, like the literal rest of my life? Because at the end of the day, you can lose weight doing all of those things. That's the easy part. We're America as a country, we're really freaking good at losing weight. It's the maintaining that weight loss that's the hard part. So if you are going about trying to change your dietary habits, I always like to say there's 3 boxes you need to check. It needs to be individualized to you. So for example, if you never need to eat carbs again for the rest of your life and you truly wholeheartedly believe that, then cool, keto's for you. 99% of people, it's not for. But if you're the special snowflake, hey, absolutely. So it's got to be individualized. It's got to be simple. If it has this detailed list of things not to do versus to do, you can only eat it this time and not on this day, and every other Friday you do this, like, that's not sustainable. And the third box is then actually sustainable. So if you can check all those boxes, individualized or unique to you, simple and sustainable, and you can truly eat that way for the rest of your life, well, now you've developed a framework that the only thing you ever need to do within that framework is toggle the portions as you see fit based on your short-term and immediate goals. And you've set yourself up for a lifetime of feeling, looking, and performing your best.
That's fantastic advice. And so now you've worked with nearly 1,500 people here. Maybe take me through that. What's that like, reflecting on so many lives impacted, changed, those types of things, and maybe pull some stories or two about people who have tried maybe multiple times to lose weight and then were finally able to sustain once they unpack their psychological aspects of it.
Yeah, so there's a client of mine I'm working right now. Actually, I'm gonna give him a big shout out. His name's Eric. Great dude, down a good chunk of weight this year and are about 7-8 months of working together. But he came to me and he was like, look, I'm a professional dieter. And I was like, I freaking love that term. I hate that you have to use it to label yourself right now, but you are not alone. Tens of millions of other people are professional dieters. And the biggest rewarding feeling or response I can get from a client is when we actually do embark on a diet phase, which, by the way, is not something a new client and I begin with. We spend 2 to 3 months not dieting. But when they get to the dieting phase, they label weight loss as easy for the first time in their life. Like no longer are they giving up after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, because it's hard, it's not sustainable, it's too complex. So hearing the term to describe this phase as easy, like it blows my mind, because these people are coming to me with a lifetime of feeling like dieting and weight loss is the hardest thing in the world because they can never go for more than a few weeks.
Mm, that's that's phenomenal, man. And then just looking back, like you've touched a lot of people's lives, man. 1,500 people in an 8-year career. That's a ton of people to be like working, or 8 years, specifically around, this avenue. Um, like, what's that feel like? And then like, what's the long-term goal? Are you doing a lot of one-on-one? Are you trying to expand it into to groups? Are you putting out course materials? Like, this is obviously effective. So how do you scale, or how are you scaling?
Yeah, so as you can probably imagine, I hit a form of burnout about twice during that 8-year period that really caused me to rethink my future. I was so young and hungry in my early days. Like I didn't care. I had no girlfriend at the time. Then I met my now wife, and she was going through her doctorate program, so she was really busy. So I kind of had like a free pass to keep grinding into the ground. And I'll never forget. It was, let me see, 2019. May and June, I went on a family trip to France. And for the first time ever, I took more than like 3 days off of my email. I was anxious, scared, shitless, like, oh my God, I can't get back to my clients. And, traveling does wonders for the mind. It spawns creativity, et cetera. But being freed and liberated from my email, in addition to traveling, I came back from that trip, realized everybody was okay. Nobody died. Nobody had a nutrition crisis, and recognize I never want to be glued to my email again, because if I told you the number of emails I received per day, you might throw up. It was just an absurd amount, and I was always checking my email. And from that day forward, I really started working, kind of as you alluded to, is putting courses together so I could serve a greater number of people, but also actually have some time to take care of myself, because I was a big advocate for, like, you've got to prioritize yourself, but I was not a good example of that. I was working myself into the ground. So we fast forward now to 2020 and 2021. I have 6 one-on-one clients, and I have a lot more of my time back. But where I'm serving people most is what I call the 5% community, which is very much a one-to-many model with unique elements to give everyone that personal feel that they are heard and not just one among many.
Yeah, I love that. And then you've got some legs under your podcast, brother. Like you got some good stuff going on out there. Let's talk about your podcast. And you've got a good following as well. Like how'd you decide that you wanted to get out there on a regular basis? And then again, how did you grow and scale it?
Yeah, so I mean, you know me well enough to know at this point I like to talk.
Oh, for
So
sure.
podcast seemed like a pretty good avenue to share whatever I had to brain dump out there into the ether. And yeah, I love, it's my preferred way to connect with people. If I can talk about something I'm passionate about, like, and truly show them I care, and then apply this to the opportunity to reach so many people, like, it just seems like a no-brainer for me. So I'll tell you what, I actually had to pay one of my good friends who had a successful podcast to, like, not even coach me through it. I basically said, like, here's $500. I need you to answer a couple questions and make sure I actually start this freaking thing. So I've been
Yeah.
talking about it for a while. So she was instrumental in actually getting me going here. And, honestly, consistency has been the biggest driver here. And, you learn techniques along the way, like, ask people if they found it valuable. Hey, like, if you could leave a genuine review or share it with someone you think would find valuable. You learn these little tips along the way. But the biggest driving factor for scaling it is just freaking show up, commit to a cadence, and don't miss that cadence. These people, they go to expect you. I'm sure you can relate. You've got a podcast you love, and if it's not there that one Tuesday morning and you're on your walk and you used to listen to it every Tuesday, it's like, shit, what do I do now? So the consistency helps build the trust, and that trust is part of the whole know, like, trust factor, where people eventually do hand over their hard-earned money for you.
Yeah, 100%, man. In the other piece of it, and the name of your podcast again, if you could.
Yeah, the Screw the Scale podcast.
Screw the Scale podcast. And you're what, 300 episodes in, something like that?
I'll be up 200 by the end of the year for sure.
Dang,
I'm
man.
over that, actually.
That's a lot. I'm at 55. I'm like, it was a grind to get to 55. So I'm looking forward to
Yeah, but
200.
you're killing it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. So, hey, again, I want to go back to something I touched on a little bit earlier, but something I really wanted to unpack with you a little bit more. When you start making recommendations from a nutritional standpoint, and now you're also making recommendations from getting your life together in some way, shape, or form, maybe sitting with your trauma, whatever it is, like what's your go-to for weight loss when you're trying to get people to be active, whether it's cardio or lifting? Like, where do you get people to start? Or I know that you tailor this individually, but like help me and maybe share some information out there with what is a good place to start and what should you be thinking about from a goal standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest piece of advice I like to share is I start with a simple question. Do you have a form of exercise that lights you up and brings you enjoyment? And most of the time someone says yes. So I say that's where we're going to start. So whether that is, if it's, let's say it's swimming, it's the Peloton bike, it's walking, it's Olympic weightlifting, CrossFit. Find what you love, because that is the form of exercise you are most likely to be consistent with. And now, let's say, for example, I have somebody who chooses a form of walking. Absolutely fantastic. Sometimes they say that to me like with a sense of underlying shame or guilt. And one thing I'm quick to remind them is there's this really cool ongoing study going on since the 1970s. It's called the National Weight Control Registry. Basically, a bunch of smart dudes are taking surveys and doing interviews with people who have lost a ton of weight and kept it off. So in order to even qualify, you have to have lost at least 32 pounds and kept it off for 12 months. But on average, of all the participants, tens of thousands, they've lost 65 pounds and kept it off for 5 years. So like they're weight maintenance pros. And the most common form of exercise amongst all of them is walking. So I like to build people back up like, hey, movement is the goal here. So whatever makes you feel good, whatever you can do consistently. But if I can, I'll start to give the gentle nudges for resistance training in some way, shape, or form, at least twice per week. So whether it's, standard going to a Globo gym, bodybuilding style workout, CrossFit, body weight and resistance bands, doesn't matter. But the resistance training just has, an infinite number of benefits from muscularly, cardiovascularly, mentally, and just total physically, mind, body, well-being. And if we can make that a staple in your weekly foundational exercise routine, you are just going to time collapse progress and significantly increase how freaking good you feel.
I love it. In the times that we're in as well, like we are getting marketed nonstop for tasty items and things. And like, I have a compulsion sometimes, like there's a rule in my house, like we can't have things like M&Ms or like candies and stuff like that just available in the pantry. Cause I'll come back from jujitsu at night. I'll be tired. I'll be like exhausted. Instead of just like going to bed and continuing on with like probably a great opportunity to fast and burn fat while I'm sleeping, I'll just grab a handful of M&Ms and pop them in my mouth and go to the shower. And it's like, it's not like it's that bad, but at the same time, if they're there, I'm going to eat them. Out and about, man, every fast food chain, every sign, every whatever, how do people change their behaviors from going to what's easy to doing what's arguably more hard, which is like sitting down and meal prepping, or maybe not meal prepping, but adapting a new behavior?
Yeah, I mean, the response I have is a bit harsh and succinct. It's a choice. Healthy eating is a choice. And in order to gain clarity on your choice, because like I said, we know what to do. In anything we're struggling with life, more often than not, our gut is telling us we know what the right choice is, or we do have at least a baseline knowledge to get started in the right direction. And when it comes to making those consistent nutrition choices, there's two things. You've got to understand how it fits into helping you achieve a goal or become the best version of you. Because at the end of the day, everyone just wants to feel their best, perform their best, whether that's cognitively or mentally or physically or a combination. Performing is the best father, husband, wife, whatever it may be. And if you can connect and attach a deeply rooted why to your healthy eating choices and how it influences your ability to ascend to the next best level of yourself, I mean, you're limitless. You're untouchable at that point because your why is so powerful. But the second item we need to consider is actually discovering why that behavior exists in the first place. And if we can understand what the trigger is and what the feeling is you're seeking, kind of going back to the scale, like, you might be actually seeking the tasty M&Ms on occasion. Like, totally get that. Those things are freaking delicious. But other times you might be seeking something else. Maybe, your jujitsu practice really just grinded you in the ground. So you need some type of instant fuel. You're so depleted because maybe you didn't have a good pre-workout meal that your body wants instant fuel. sugar as that instant fuel. Maybe the dopamine rush that it provides too is actually covering up something that you're seeking otherwise in your life, a happiness, an element of joy, fulfillment, etc. So we need to understand the trigger for said behavior, what you're really seeking, and then ultimately see if we can substitute that behavior with something that still gives you the desired outcome.
Very good, man. Very good. And hey, I said in the intro as well, that you were an author, as well. So like, talk to me about that. Talk to me about that process. Talk to me about some of the things that you've published and what's been important to you in this space.
Oh man, the process. It is a process to say the least. Holy cow. I'm sure everyone, including yourself, can really relate that when they want to put something out there, their harshest critic, they want to be a perfectionist to some degree. So you rewrite the same freaking sentence 17 times. But the two books in particular that stand out that I've published are called A Dietitian's Dozen Fat Loss Tips. And the other one is called Fueling the Adolescent, which is a guide for parents, guardians, for athletes and non-athletes alike, to help the parents and the children ages 7 to 17 understand how to start having conversations about healthy food choices, viewing food as fuel, but still keeping things fun and light based on the age group. And I would say that the latter book, Fueling the Adolescent, was very challenging to write because although I had a good foundation of knowledge, there was a lot of research I had to do, a lot of people I had to speak to, and making sure I was able to write in a way that catered to a parent who had zero nutrition knowledge, and also speak to a child who maybe cares a little bit but has no nutrition knowledge as well. And just really fine-tuning the ability to meet that voice just took repetition and feedback. And it turned out to be a fantastic product I'm very proud of. But I was happy to send it off to the editor once and for all.
How long did it take to write?
Oh man, so you asked that question. I'm like, I can imagine or envision exactly where I was writing this. This is when my wife was finishing her doctorate. I'm sitting at Northern Arizona University on like Saturdays and Sundays outside of her office, an empty building, none of the lights are on except my little light in there, just grinding away. Oh, over a year for sure. 18 months.
Just lots of research getting after. And then what was the response, especially specifically in the book tailored to adolescents?
Very overwhelmingly positive. It was very actionable, useful, very easy to implement what was being shared right away. And the parents that reached out to us, which was quite a number, because I was partnering with another company to launch to their bigger audience, just nothing short of fantastic reviews. And really the overwhelming feedback was just actionable items that they could begin applying right away. Because even those parents who are weekend warriors, very active in their own right, pay attention to their nutrition, like that's all well and good, but try having that conversation with a 7-year-old. It's a little bit challenging.
I'm in that boat right now.
Yes.
I've got my son's 7, my daughter's 5. My son, though he has improved greatly in the things that he's willing to eat and try, he was a very picky eater growing up. And then like he'll eat things like textures mess him up, like eggs and avocado, like some of my staples. He'll just throw them up. Like he can't even eat them. I'm like, son, dude, like, you're missing out on like 2 of the best foods ever, in my opinion. And so like when there's, I don't know, like, coach me up a little bit. I got a 7-year-old who's a little athlete. He's a stud. Love watching him play. I got a daughter that will eat anything that you put on a plate. Like she'll eat steak, she'll eat, whatever we're going to eat. My son, it's a little bit more challenging. So what's the literature kind of nudge parents in my position into?
Yes, I'll definitely send you a copy as soon as we get off this for sure. That way you have that resource forever. But there is a section on picky eaters, because as I was polling big groups of adults and parents, like that was the number one question that came through. Like, how do I tackle a picky eater? And you have to recognize that for most children, it's a phase. And it sucks as a parent who just cares and wants nothing but the best for your child, especially like, hey, you are missing out on 2 of the best foods. Like, come on, man. I want to provide you this happiness and this experience. You have to realize it's phasing. So the best thing you can do, or there's like 3 of them. Number 1 is patience. Like, I know that's the hard kind of cop-out cliche answer, but it's very true here. 2, you need to continue just to be a role model. Like, children are absolutely freaking sponges at this age. So if you're modeling, a variety of different foods on your plate at different meals, that's going to really go a long way. The third one is don't just shy away from continuing to provide them with opportunities to try new foods. I know it can be very frustrating, when your kid's eating nothing but cheese sticks. So this is speaking from a parent who shared this with me all day, every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Still have the fruit available, the carrots, the meat, the deli meat, the yogurt, the milk. Still have it available, and you're going to continue to do you, eating your variety of foods every day, every meal, etc. And there's going to reach a point where they become just curious enough to give that grape a try again, or just curious enough to have a bite of those scrambled eggs. And taste buds are rapidly changing at that age. And all of a sudden, it's going to taste a little better. And then they're going to be more curious, and it's going to be a positive ripple effect. And now next thing you know, 3 months later, they're eating 12 different foods.
I love it. Yeah. When he was 4, he didn't like pizza, and I didn't trust him. I'd look at my wife and I'd be like, I don't think I trust him all that much. Like we got to really keep an eye on this guy. He doesn't like pizza, but he likes pizza now. So
good.
To your point, the more reps, the more opportunity modeling that behavior. He's basically a Ninja Turtle now. So it's worked out. Hey dude, another thing I wanted to talk to you about, we have a commonality. We both went through the Modern Day Night Project, which is a 75-hour self-development program. It's put on by a couple savages down in Southern California there. Shout out to Bedros and Ray and Matt, Aaron, and Steve. But it's a pretty intense experience. And you and I had a chance to, we've talked about it briefly in the past when we were seeing each other in person. Man, I want to know a little bit more about what drove you to go and explore the project, and then what you got out of it, maybe how it's changed things in your life. Because I'm always curious, and this is a great platform for it.
Yeah, happy. Whew. Yeah. So I actually had dinner with a fellow 006 class graduate, which was my class last night. He came down to Tampa for a conference. I met up with him, Fisher. Shout out to him. Great dude, wonderful company
sure.
and dinner. So for me, I was at a point in my life where things were going well financially in the business. Coaching that many people, it did have its benefits and its rewards for so long. So I felt things were going really well there. The exercise and the nutrition was an expertise of mine for respectively. So everything in my fitness and everything felt really good. But something just felt off, like missing in my life. And I, for the longest time, could not put my finger in it. So, you can see all those books behind me. I would try to read all these books to see, like, oh, maybe I'm just missing one key thing to find fulfillment, to find happiness. And it wasn't that I was unhappy. I just didn't feel how I thought I should feel. And I was struggling to find anyone who felt the same way. And ultimately, I'm going to start using some of the words I use or I learned from my experience. I was truly suffering in silence. So I had no idea why I wasn't feeling the way I thought I should be feeling. I had so many things to be grateful for. And at the time, I thought I was grateful for them, but something was missing. And, you read more and more books. I happened to stumble across Bedros' book, Man Up, started following him on social media. And then I remember started seeing things for the project. And I was like, this is really cool, because there's part of me in high school. I was in junior ROTC. I was very into the military, had aspirations to join. My mother had other aspirations, and although I never went, I've just still had just the utmost admiration and respect from a distance. And I was like, this might be the closest I could ever get to having some type of experience that might even resemble 1/1000% of a Navy SEAL experience. Let me check it out. And then when I learned that it's much more than just a physical butt whooping, I was like, okay, maybe this is what I need. And the sure sign that led me to believe I needed to pull the trigger on this was the actual investment. Because, you're not messing around at investing in yourself to that degree. If this was another $97 one-day event, it's like, no, this isn't going to change my life. So the fact that it scared me was a good thing.
Yeah, you got to put some money up, man. And you can, and if you don't come out the other side, 40% of the people ring the bell and they leave that money on the table, which is absolutely insane to me because I wasn't parting ways with it, man. For sure.
Yeah. So it was a lack of fulfillment that just drove me nuts in my own personal growth journey, trying and learning and reading and doing everything. And I was fortunate enough to stumble on that. And I still remember I was talking with Aaron. He signed me up in April. I was going to do the June cohort. COVID had other plans, so I didn't end up going until November. But and then the experience it took place.
That's awesome, man. I love hearing that. Again, I've talked about my my journey through finding the project and going through it, a class 001, right? Plank group,
Yeah,
getting an opportunity to go through. It's changed so much, but they're doing the project right now, class
I
9.
know.
That was just one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up, because I've, we get a little private Facebook group and follow some of the things that go on. And I'm like, yeah, like it's, every time somebody drops out or whatever, it's like, whoa, like why, what was their reason? Like, was it physical? Was it mental? I mean, it keeps you focused in life. Anytime the project starts, a lot of us change our Facebook images or whatever to the insignia. And I think it's an important reminder for me. It always refreshes me that there's some guys out there right now getting real close to being in touch with their suffering or their internal hurt. So I don't know, just definitely a fun topic of conversation too.
Yeah, it is. And I know from my experience, I'm sure you can relate on many levels. Like I really deemed 2020 for me, which was the year I ended up graduating and doing it, as a year of, self-discovery and really getting back to like who I truly am authentically. And I think for a while, for whatever reason, many reasons, I was not quite my true authentic self, trying to kind of, whether it was be more liked, fit in, because I've always had this sense that I was just different in some way, unfulfilled in some way. And the project really exposed some personal demons that led me to, through hardship and consistency, trying to work through them. I can honestly say with the utmost confidence today, I've never had more clarity on who I am, where I'm going, etc. But it took months and months of deep, like literal daily work after unearthing and discovering those demons to get where I am. And the project is the number one reason I am where I am today.
100%, man. I have the same attribution to it of finding my authentic self and just stop giving a fuck about what other people think about me. Stop seeking
Yes.
validation. Stop, not living, my quote unquote is a maybe an overused statement, but my truth, like in my life, like what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? How do I want to be a husband, father, all those types of things. So great commonality, man, there.
Yeah,
But
100%. I'll tell you.
oh,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, I will take you up on that. I was gonna say within a week of getting back, so I'd already started paring down like my one-on-one coaching. That's when I was finally coming to an end there. But I like within a week coming back, I cut it off at the head. No more new clients officially because I was partnering. I was consulting for a large company, and made several massive changes because that coaching at the time, 90% of my revenue. I just cut it off, and I had to just move on and find a way to replace it and then some.
That's an intense decision to make, and it sounds like it's worked out well.
It has, yeah. And one might think like, wow, what an emotionally charged decision. And maybe it was the positive emotion charged because it was the clarity I finally had. Like, stop fucking around. Like, what you want to do, you got to go after it, or you're gonna just live in this life of regret over and over, year after year.
Yeah, what an interesting dichotomy that is being a catalyst for somebody to change their life and then to be in part unhappy with the way that you're living yours, at least in some way.
Yeah.
So what do you got coming up, man? What's next for you? What's on the excitement for here 2021, looking into the next couple years?
Yeah, man, it's growing the heck out of the 5% community. Like I said, this is my community focusing on getting people to, mentally, emotionally, for lack of better words, excuse my language, unfuck themselves so that the
Yeah.
sustainable weight loss becomes possible. But more importantly, they ascend to that next best level of the self where they have the confidence, the clarity, the calm, and the inner peace to just live life to the fullest as their authentic self. And you and I both know that the way we look and feel is a major driver to that. So all those nutrition, weight, health related challenges kind of fall to the background when we work on the deep inside work because they become easy and effortless when you have the right internal tools. So I'm just really excited about the team I have around me who is helping me. Just, I like to say, I'm living out my dream every day now. I've never had this level of clarity before. And I mean, my wife sometimes thinks I'm like overdosing on caffeine all day. And I'm like, nah, I haven't even had any. I just feel freaking good.
I love that, man. Hey, and then maybe before we part ways here, maybe just take a minute and address people that might be listening to the podcast that are unfulfilled in this area of their life, whether it be diet or exercise, or maybe they're reflecting based on our conversation about some dealt with traumas or some kind of emotional barriers. Like, what do you say directly to them in order to maybe help catalyze their journey?
I think when someone is facing any type of trauma, stress, unfulfillment, their gut is telling them what that is and what they need to do more often than not. And for many of us, it's stopping the suffering in silence. And even if that's telling someone, or if it's at least, I like to call it a brain dump or a thought download to a journal, a sticky note, an index card, you have to get whatever's in here or up here just out somehow, somewhere, verbally written down. And I think you'll find if you can take that one step, write a single freaking sentence about how you feel and just start there. You're going to grow. You're going to feel liberated the more and more you get things out. And this can be one sentence a day, but take 2 minutes for yourself. You always have 2 minutes, and just get your thoughts or feelings out on paper or into someone else's ears. And the liberation that comes with that is going to help, serve as a catalyst and motivator to you doing that more often. And that's just going to have a very positive snowball effect.
Brother, I truly appreciate you coming on the podcast today. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. I hope people will go out and find you on Instagram. It's Paul Salter Coaching. The website is paulsalter.com, and go to his podcast and please go follow and download this podcast, the Screw the Scale podcast. Go find it on iTunes, and I'm sure you're distributed all over the internet as well on that one.
Try my best to be. You're right.
All right, brother. Hey, I'm looking forward to bringing you back on the podcast eventually. I'd love to talk more about nutrition and things that are going on from a current event standpoint. And again, I appreciate your perspective and your love and your drive for this kind of stuff. You got me fired up today, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity, and I would gladly come back. So thank you again for this.
All right. Cheers, my man.